if you talk to old timers, and they never call them Roanoke bass, they call them red eyes because they have a bright red eye. They'll tell you if the corn is above your shins, you're too late on big fish.
Step one, plant corn.
Plant corn.
All right, guys. We're here for another episode of Better Fishing with Two Ball Biologists. Corey, how you doing?
I'm all right, man.
Have you been fishing lately?
I have.
We have.
Yeah.
Actually, before we even get started, I've gotten a little bit of flack and comments about certain things that have happened on the boat in maybe a previous year's season.
Okay.
And some of them involved apparel.
Oh.
And I just want you guys to know that Corey's family came back out on the boat with me.
We did return.
They came back, so whatever you're envisioning wasn't but so bad.
Yeah.
And they came back, and there was no issues with any of my apparel on the boat.
Yeah,
so
you got stronger pants.
I redeemed myself.
You did redeem yourself.
So I just wanted to, set the record straight on that.
Yeah.
It only happened
twice
in a row, but it's okay. Been fishing, caught some fish.
Yeah.
We've been to the mountains and back and fished around New Bern a little bit. And so it's it's nice to get back on the water because we had a stint that it did not happen.
It was really cold in the winter, and then it warmed up in the spring, and now we're into the summertime. So
right.
It's always hot in the summertime.
Right. Well, so this is going to be a unique podcast. Mainly because today we're going to talk about something that Corey knows a lot about and I know very little about. And
so that means you're going to talk the whole time, right?
Yeah, I'm going to totally monopolize the discussion.
Sounds great.
So
I think that's good. I think that's a good idea.
Because I think, that's probably the best way to handle things is to just, talk over top of you when I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
The listeners, I'm sure, will approve.
So, no, but in all honesty, we're going to talk about Roanoke bass today, which is, they're in Corey's backyard. They're kind of a fish that's near and dear to Corey because they're so convenient in part, and also because they're unique to the state. But the way my life has gone, I have not really gotten many opportunities. I've done all kinds of things, but I haven't done this thing that's...
Well, we're going to get you there.
Yeah, we're doing that. That's coming soon. Stay tuned. We're going to make some content where we go and get me on a Roanoke bass or two, so that'll be fun. But so today we're going to talk about it. The purpose of today is for me to learn as much as I need to be proficient to catch these things when we go.
Sure.
So
yeah, we can talk about the biology too. I've worked a lot on them. So.
Right. Well, that is kind of the whole nexus of this, right? Is to talk about fish biology and the work we do on these fish, which is they're interesting because they're a unique fish for us, and they're not really found in a lot of places outside of our area.
Yeah, so they're in the sunfish family. So they're related to largemouth and the other basses, and they're also related to bluegills and crappies and all those animals as well. So they're in that family. But they are really unique to North Carolina and Virginia. They're only found in North Carolina and Virginia. They're kind of fish nerd out for a second. They're in the Amblypleides genus. There's only like 3 of them. So
you're getting deep quick.
I know, it was deep quick.
Yeah.
But there's only 3 of them. There's the rock bass, which is common to our mountain region and common to a lot of the Mississippi drainage interior basin, and then I think maybe the Ozark bass I think is the other one. I think that's the third one, which obviously Ozarks mean it's out towards Missouri and Arkansas. But the Roanoke bass is only found historically only found in the Neuse, Tar, and Roanoke River drainages. So it's a very, very tight window of where this fish occurs naturally. They have been stocked in the Uwharrie, so they can be found in the Uwharrie River. They've also been stocked in the Deep and the Rocky River, which is kind of the Chatham, Lee County area. So that was done in the 70s, and they can be found there as well. So, but once again, not a fish that you find just anywhere, but they look a lot like a rock bass. So, I mean, you hold them together, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you'd be like, that's a rock bass.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I've fished a lot in the Piedmont, but it's been mostly reservoir fishing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, for whatever reason, my fishing past has not spent a whole lot of time in Piedmont streams.
Yeah. And
Piedmont streams are not really that easy to get to in some parts. It's getting better.
Yeah.
But, when I was running all over the state 20 years ago, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of access in the streams. It was more
correct.
reservoir.
Yeah, it's Piedmont is very heavy on reservoir fishing, but there are a lot of streams. There's a lot of opportunities out there if you can get access to them. The access has gotten better as people have moved to the Piedmont. People have looked for that kind of access, and so the access has gotten better. It's still where Roanoke bass occur. It's still sometimes very difficult to get to them because there's a lot of private land ownership and not a lot of public access in some of those places, like the Upper Noose and the Upper Tar in particular is difficult to get to. You kind of have to float from bridge to bridge kind of thing on a canoe or a kayak to get to them. One of the great places to find them is in the Eno River State Park in Durham County, Durham and Orange County. You can go there. There's a lot of trail system through that borders the river. Roanoke bass can be found in the Eno and in the flat rivers of the Upper Noose, and so you can easily access it through that park system. And that's how I started doing it. Started fishing for them because I live in Orange County. I live right next door to the park, and I didn't have a boat at the time, and my love for fishing took over, and that's the fish I found, when I moved to the Piedmont. So
when I didn't have a boat, I did a lot of wade fishing and stuff like that too, because I wanted to catch fish. So it gives you another option, and that you don't have to have a huge investment in, right?
Yeah, and the thing about it is a different type of fishing. Wade fishing is a different type of fishing than boat fishing. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about wading into a stream. You're by yourself. It's just quiet. You're just kind of neck deep in nature. Whereas on a boat, a lot of times you see other boats, there's other people around you, that kind of thing. But the wade fishing, to me, that was the part I loved, was that I could walk in, I would rarely see a human. You know me, I would rarely see a human. I was in paradise. I'd rarely see a human. It's just the water's running by you. You're standing in the river. You're catching fish. You can see the fish. Particularly, this is fairly clear water most of the time, unless it's just rained. So you can see the fish moving around. You won't see the Roanoke bass, but you can see a lot of other stream fishes that are doing activities, nesting, that kind of stuff. So for me as a biologist, it was just kind of my jam.
Right.
So,
well, the wade fishing I grew up wade fishing for bass and sunfish on the Roanoke, and I can say that I'd rather be waist deep in nature than neck deep in nature from my wade fishing.
Yeah.
So
that is one of the thing about wade fishing. You better know where you're stepping, because you could step off a ledge pretty quick.
I've done both.
Yes.
And yes, it does happen.
It does happen. I will say kind of the central Piedmont rivers, they don't have as much of that. Mm-hmm. Like you will know that hole before you'll see that hole before you get there. Now there are some rivers like the Upper Roanoke, like you get up in the Mayo and the Smith rivers that are kind of in that Rockingham County, and Roanoke bass occur there as well. In that Rockingham County, Surrey County, Stokes County area, you can be walking in those rivers and you can be ankle deep, and the very next step you could be over your head and you never saw it coming. Mm-hmm. It's just, there are a lot of ledge rocks,
right.
It's flat, and then it just like that, so I would advise people, the Eno and that Upper Noose area is not like that at all. You'll kind of know that hole before you ever get there. You won't just step off in it, so to speak. It'll kind of you'll slowly decline into the hole. So yeah, that is a warning. Like if you are wade fishing, be prepared that you might get wet. Like generally when I'm wade fishing, I'm not wearing waders. I'm wearing like swim trunks and wading boots. It's really good to have wading boots, particularly that have felt soles on them. It'll help you grip rocks. You won't slip. You won't bust your knees up and your shins up as much. You still might do that, but it'll be less of that.
Mm-hmm.
and I just walk with wading boots and swim trunks on and carry my gear with me. And, I may walk 2-3 miles in a day, fishing. I'll start at a spot and just kind of, we'll talk about the habitats in a little while, kind of find what I'm looking for, and I'll fish that. And when I think I've fished it enough, I just move downstream, and then I'll end up getting out of the river and walking all the way back to the truck, to go home. So it's a long day. I mean, be prepared. For me, I generally go all day. I go early in the morning, and I'll do it till I'm like, they're not biting anymore.
So this also, I mean, if you have a kayak or a really small whatever canoe, you could do kind of a float trip and do the same thing as well, right?
Yeah. The thing about Piedmont rivers is they're very flashy. Mm-hmm. So when it rains, it comes up really fast and then it drops really fast. And most of our Piedmont rivers are floatable that first couple of days after a hard rain, or a good rain. Otherwise, you're dragging a lot. You're dragging a canoe, and you can do that. I've dragged a lot of kayaks and a lot of canoes. That we did a TV episode on Carolina All Out with Roanoke Bass, and we drug that canoe or that boat all over the Flat River that day, the Flat and Eno rivers. I mean, I was exhausted. I mean, so you can do that, but it is a lot of work to drag that when it's not up. And so you have to kind of look at the USGS gauges, the flow gauges, the flow meters. Like on the Eno, if it's below 2.25 feet at West Point on the Eno River, it ain't worth floating it.
So it sounds to me, and again, I've never done this before, so I'm trying to help someone like me who's never done this before. From what you're describing, it's a lot of this water's 2-3 inches, and then you're fishing little pockets and holes and things like that.
They kind of inhabit the entire river, but they inhabit the entire river, the habitats within the river at different life stages.
Sure.
So you'll see a lot of, if you go, let's take the Eno River, for example. You'll go to the Eno River and you'll see a lot of these kind of shoaly, really shallow 6-inch water runs, riffles that we call them, that have a lot of water willow in them. Which is a plant that grows up out of them. And that habitat is really for really small fish. You'll catch a lot. I mean, you won't catch them if you're doing the work, the biological work. That's where you'll catch a lot of the kind of young a year, 2-year-old.
Gotcha.
Those animals, that's where they kind of occur. Then, what you'll find is you'll see what I call rock gardens. Like you'll come to a part in the river and you'll see these big kind of, I wouldn't call them massive boulders, but they're good 4 foot, in diameter kind of rocks that are sitting in kind of maybe 3 to 4 foot of water at the most. And there's running water through it. It's not like a deep pool. It's like just this kind of run that's happening. And that's where the bulk of Roanoke bass occur most of the year. They hide under these rocks. They hide right up against them. You visually will not generally see Roanoke bass swimming around. Right. Like that. You're not going to see them. And you'll get around those rock garden areas and fish kind of around the rocks, over the rocks, up beside the rocks. Mm-hmm. And that's where you'll get bit. They'll literally, if it's clear enough, you can literally see the fish come out from underneath the rock, grab the bait and go right back.
Right.
It's really cool to watch.
Yeah.
And that's where the bulk of the animals are, bulk of the fish are. But then there are pockets of deep pools. And when I say deep pools, it's really slow water. It might be 6 foot to 10 foot deep. They're very rare in Piedmont rivers around the central Piedmont. Mm-hmm. And then you will typically find a bigger fish in that area. Now, you're going to have to concentrate on a rock that may be down there that you can't see, that you just happen to find, or woody debris. They love woody debris as well, sure. Like all sunfish. They'll hide around woody debris. And generally you can pull a bigger, and when I say bigger, that fish is like 1.5 pound type fish. You generally can pull 1.5 pound, 1.25 pound fish out of something like that. Mm-hmm. you may, if it's spawning season, you'll pull 1.5 pounds out of that run area because that's kind of where they spawn. They spawn in those runs.
Right.
But you're not going to maybe find that year round. Whereas you'll find that kind of 3/4 pound to pound fish in that rock garden year round.
So you said, that the younger fish are in one place and up to about 2 years old in that riffly run. Mm-hmm. And then in the deeper spots, you got 1.5 pound fish. How old is a larger fish?
So, we've done a lot of work. Well, I did a lot of work on these guys. The Wildlife Commission has done a lot of work over since the 80s on. And then I did a lot of work kind of in the early 2000s on them. And basically, they don't grow really fast. Like you think a sunfish grows real quick, and they actually don't. 1.5 pound fish is like a 6-year-old fish, okay. and he's getting late in life. I mean, you don't see many over like age 7. Generally, most of the population is 2 to 4 years of age, and a fish this big, sunfish this big, is probably between 2 and 3.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they grow really slow. And I think part of that is that they're a stream fish. There's low productivity in some of these streams, it's fairly clear water. And so they don't grow really fast. But then by the time, you get them, there's like a jump. They're like that at 2 or 3. And then by that, they're like 5, so there's a period of time where they kind of pop, into a size that you would like to catch.
There was a period of time when I popped through. Right after grad school.
Yeah. So, me too. I think I popped in kindergarten.
I'm trying to unpop as we speak. But no, so I mean that's interesting because they're maybe a little bit older than like a bluegill would traditionally be.
Yes. But it actually surprised me.
Yeah.
Like when I first started aging these animals, I was like, oh, that's slow growth compared to what a bluegill would be or what a red ear would be.
Right. But maybe just shy of maybe what a bass would be.
Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of gives maybe our listeners their scope on the world is maybe 7 years for the most part.
Yeah.
That'd be an old one.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's you're generally going to see fish when you're out fishing for them and catch them. You're generally going to see fish that are 8 to 10 inches in length. Mm-hmm. That's the bulk of them. You'll catch a few 4 to 6 inch fish, but not a ton. But generally the ones you catch are 8 to 10. Now, the ones I'm looking for are like the 13, 14s, and 15s.
Amen.
That's the ones I'm looking for. Now, I may go 5 times and I might see a 13 to 15 twice in the one of those, maybe 2 times in a 5
That's
five
the top
trip.
end.
It's very top end. Mm-hmm. You'll see a lot of 8 to 10s, a couple of 12s, but I'm looking for that 1.5 pound, is what I'm really looking for.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the larger fish are always your rarer fish because they're the top end of the spectrum.
But they do exist, is my point. Like, they're not like a unicorn. People catch them. People send me pictures of, hey man, look at this thing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, that's a good one.
So if you were going fishing for them and then just say an average day, like what's your average good day? Like the conditions are right, because I know that if you get a lot of rain or something, it kind of changes things and maybe even affects your weighting. But
yes,
gravity's real.
Gravity is real.
So, but if you were going fishing and this was, good conditions on an average day, what would your expectations be to catch in a day? Because you say you give it a day.
Yeah, if they're not spawning, so they're not in spawning season. Let's just say it's August, like it is now. You're looking at 20 to 25 on an average day, of picking, and that's working all day and you're working pretty hard to do that and really truly like targeting their habitats. Now, with that being said, you're going to catch more than 20 to 25 fish.
Right.
That's 20 to 25 Roanoke bass. You're probably going to double that amount in redbreast. Mm-hmm. Now the redbreasts aren't super huge. They're 4 to 6 inches at the max.
Right.
But you're going to double. You're going to catch.
You'll catch other.
You'll
stuff.
catch 40 redbreast sunfish doing that. You'll catch some largemouth doing that. You may catch a sucker. You may catch bullheads and other catfish species. I mean, sometimes I catch crappies doing that. It just depends. I mean, all those animals are there, you know, and they're running around, and you're seeing all of them. You'll see the bulk of those animals. But you know, generally it's a 20 to 25 fish day. Now, if they're on the spawn, you can stand in one place and catch 15.
Oh, wow.
And never move. Like if you catch the spawn window and you find where they're spawning in the river, you find one of those rock gardens. I mean, I have stood in one place and threw in one hole and caught 15, just one right after the other.
So do they I'm assuming they spawn once a year.
Seems to be that way to me.
And is it like a lot of the sunfish species where it's in the springtime?
It typically is later than it's later than a largemouth.
Okay.
But it's like I'm gonna say I've never really been able to pin it down, but I would say it's late May, early June. It's kind of their window.
So the water temperature, I'm guessing maybe upper 60s, somewhere in that window.
And if you talk to old timers, because they'll tell you that if you talk to people that have caught Roanoke bass and have lived along these rivers that have them, and they never call them Roanoke bass, they call them red eyes because they have a bright red eye. So everybody's going to call them a red eye when they're talking to you about them. They'll tell you if the corn is above your shins, you're too late on big fish. Like it's very similar to a lot of other animals where the big, larger females are early.
Step one.
Plant
corn.
so then you'll know.
Now we're really getting to the
But I mean, I'm serious. That's what they'll say. So if you think about corn and a corn crop, generally it's above shin high by late May.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times it's above shin high by late May. So that tells me those bigger females are kind of that late April, early May.
Right.
But the bulk of the spawning I've seen has been late May into June.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're done. They seem to be done. So I mean, they're not like bluegill that spawn 3, 4, 5 times, you know, throughout the summer. They don't seem to do that to me. At least I haven't seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a lot of fall surveys, and they don't have eggs. When I say fall, like late August, early September, they're spent. They don't have eggs during that time. So.
Okay. So these are the hard-hitting questions that I think our listeners are interested in. When you apply cornmeal to them and you drop them in some hot grease, how does it fare?
They're delicious.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really good. You know, I've eaten a lot of sunfish in my day.
I've never met a sunfish I didn't like.
Sunfish was built this temple. You can bet on that. They remind me a lot of shell crackers. Mm-hmm. Like they're very similar to the texture. They're very similar to the flavor. Like I can tell the difference between a shell cracker and a bluegill. Sorry, I've eaten a lot of sunfish.
Yeah.
They remind me a lot of shell crackers. They're not like crappie. They don't have the same. They're not the same texture as a crappie is. You know, crappie's very distinct texture.
It's a little softer.
It's a lot softer. Mm-hmm. This is firmer.
Okay.
A little sweeter. Yeah, I like eating them.
Good.
Yeah, they're tasty.
Good.
Yeah.
So I'm heading that way. What kind of gear do I need if I want to? You talked about the wading gear, you know, and go to the state park there and hop in the water.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's not flowing fast. Generally, you want the water to be fairly clear.
I do.
Yeah.
I have fished both clear and muddy, and for whatever reason, I am not successful in a muddy river. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know if they're not feeding and they're hunkered down because the flow's up, because they are a sunfish in a flowing river,
right?
You know, and they're fairly large sunfish in a flowing, you know, or they just tucked behind a rock and they're just like, no, I ain't doing this, you know.
Sure.
Or is it they don't like the baits I'm throwing, or the bait's not getting to them, or they can't see it because they have when you see pictures and if you watch our video, you'll see a picture of a Roanoke bass on the screen. You'll notice they have a very large eye for the size fish that they are, and it is bright red. And I think, you know, they're very visual predators. So I'm wondering if muddy water just makes it where, and it doesn't stay muddy there long.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. You know, they don't have muddy water conditions very long. So they're generally probably feeding, normally for them, they're probably feeding in a very clear water environment.
Okay. So we've talked about wading boots and how that's a
must.
Good thing to have.
I mean, you can wear old tennis shoes and all that.
Good wading boots.
Yes, because you can lose your soles, as you know.
Yeah. If you wear old wading boots,
they're going to fall apart.
You can stand in a creek and watch your
soul
float right past, as I learned.
Go right by you. I watched it, and you went, whose souls are those? And I'm like, they're yours.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get every bit of good out of some equipment.
You do. The funniest part about that was you lost one, and then you lost the other, and the only way to go get new shoes was to basically walk in your wet socks back down to the truck. And that was the funny part, was watching you walk with wet socks going back down. To me, it was anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's the little things in life that make me happy.
Yeah. I'm what you call hard on things.
Yes, sir, you are. That is well said. If you need it broken, send it to Ben.
Yeah, I'll be happy to break anything y'all need, and I won't even do it on purpose.
Yeah, so, it'll just happen.
Yeah. I break my own stuff too.
Yeah, you break your own stuff. You break other people's stuff. It's okay, but you're good for it. I mean, you do replace it when you break it. I mean, But if you need to
play, you got to pay, right?
Yeah, that's right. But if you need it broken, 1-800. Ask Ben.
Call me. I'll be happy to break your stuff.
Be glad to do it.
Won't even. It's just happen.
And no charge.
Yeah.
Do it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I when I first started, I did tennis shoes. Like that's how I started doing it. I didn't wear wading boots. I'm from the coast. We don't have wading boots. And so I wore old tennis shoes. Well, what I found was I slipped a lot.
Yeah.
It was real slick. I mean, it is slick. I slipped a lot. And the tennis shoes only last about 3 or 4 trips, and they're going to fall apart. The glue comes apart, or whatever they're made with.
They get soggy. They get all that sand in it.
They get the sand in it. It's done. And so my suggestion is get you some wading socks.
Yes.
So that's a neoprene cover that you put over your feet, and then you slip them into boots, and then the wading sock will go over top the boot, and that boot will keep you from slipping as much. You're still going to slip at times, but it'll keep you from slipping as much. And that wading sock will keep the sand from getting down in your boot, because there's nothing worse than having a sandy boot. I'm just being honest with you. Wet sandy boot, it's no good. It'll wear the skin off your feet.
It will. Your pedicurist will wonder what in the world you just did.
Your feet will be smooth and a little raw.
Right.
So I
don't have a pedicurist, but I can only imagine.
Well, we're learning more about you every day.
Right.
But
I might need one. Who knows?
Yeah. So that's the first. I'm not going there.
Aside.
That's an aside. That's a whole nother podcast. But that's the first thing you need. Then I would tell you, for what you're doing, you don't need a high-end rod. You just need an ultralight rod, 6 foot, 6.5 foot. You don't need a 7-foot rod. You don't need something really tall, because you're going in tight places.
Gotcha.
You got overhanging trees over you. And so you need something small, ultralight, 4 to 6 pound test. I generally use 6 pound test.
Okay.
Just because you're going to bump into trees and pull baits off, and you're going to hang on rocks and stuff like that. And it gives you a little more strength. You lose less baits that way.
Right.
And so that's generally what I use. I don't think fluorocarbon helps all that much. Just some kind of leader, not straight braid.
Right.
Just some kind of leader that is a monofilament fluorocarbon
or
leader.
just straight mono.
Or just straight mono. Yeah. That's right. I generally use braid because it lasts longer, because you're doing a lot of reeling, and my mono on a ultralight will get really curly and wrap itself up more than I want. So I use braid with a fluorocarbon leader. That's what I use. But you don't necessarily have to do that. It's fairly simple fishing.
So we've talked about ultralight and maybe about a 500 or smaller size reel.
Yeah, something really small.
Talked about pound test line, but what are these fish eating? Like, what do they feed on? They got a big mouth.
They do. They have a very large mouth. They are predominantly crayfish eaters. They eat crayfish. It's like, we did diet studies back in the 80s. The commission did. It's like 90+% of their diet. And they do eat small fishes. They do eat bugs, that kind of stuff. But it is a crayfish heavy diet. And when you catch them, that you'll see the crayfish protruding out of their belly. Wow. I mean, you'll see the exoskeleton of the crayfish. A lot of times they'll have crayfish hanging out of them. They're trying to pass the exoskeleton out. They'll have crayfish hanging out of their anal pore. So yeah, it's crayfish heavy. And when you're there on the rivers and you're walking it, you'll know why. I mean, there's crayfish just running everywhere.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
just all you got to do is look, and you'll just see the crayfish hiding under rocks every time you take a
yeah,
step.
those streams are loaded with crayfish.
They are loaded with crayfish. So that's really what you're mimicking. You know, they do eat fish. I've caught things that look like swim baits, little small swim baits, that kind of stuff, straight tails.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, straight tails. Can't go wrong with a straight tail. They will definitely hit those kinds of baits as well. But if it mimics a crayfish, you're going to have a really good chance of catching them. So I would
assume you're throwing like browns, greens, grays, that kind of thing.
Browns, greens, grays. You can brighten it up at times, just to throw something a little different. Orange is really good. Mm-hmm. Oranges, reds, dark browns, pumpkin color. Those are my kind of go-tos. But truth be told, some of my best days have been solid white.
Sure.
You know, you can't go wrong with white. For whatever reason, you just can't go wrong with it.
A white crawfish will catch a lot of things.
Yeah. So anyway, I did bring baits today. So one of the baits that I use a lot is a crankbait, and this is the Rebel Teeny Craw.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a fairly natural colored pattern. This will catch a lot of red breast sunfish. Like if you're not catching Roanoke bass, it's just a slow day for Roanokes for whatever reason. This thing right here will wear you out with red breast sunfish. You will catch the pee out of them. I mean, it's going to work really, really well for whatever reason. It's just their jam on those rivers.
Well, they're a lot of times sitting around the same rocks anyway. So
yeah, and you'll catch red breast everywhere. Like you'll catch red breast in 6 inches of water there. I mean, they're just everywhere. So that's that. This is the size just up above that. It's a little bit different colors. Got a blue tip craw of the claw, but it's kind of a redder, deeper red color.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit bigger size. I like this one for Roanoke bass. This is probably the size I throw the most.
Wow.
And generally, once again, I am looking for a larger fish. I'm not looking for that 4 to 6 inch fish. The other size, you'll catch a lot of 4 to 6 inchers on. This size is the one that I generally catch my 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 inch fish on. One of the great things about these baits is in these rivers, there's rocks everywhere. And this thing will bounce off of rocks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really hang up on rocks. You can hang up from time to time, but generally you don't on this bait.
Sure.
This is kind of my gut. This is where I start. I always start here, and it may not be this color, but this is where I'll start.
From somebody who hasn't done this yet,
yeah,
that seems like a relatively big bait for what we're talking about.
They got a big mouth, and that's about the size of the crayfish.
Right. So it's kind of matching what's out there anyway.
Yeah. I mean, this one here is kind of a baby crayfish.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a very large crayfish. And so generally if you think about it, you're going to catch fish that are about the size that can eat that baby crayfish. So you're going to catch that 4 to 6 inch fish. Therefore, you're catching red breasts that are 4 to 6 inches. You're catching Roanokes that are 4 to 6 inches. But I always carry this with me because if Roanokes aren't biting, because there are days they don't bite.
Sure.
If they're not biting, I can catch red breasts.
Sure.
Like it's pretty. If we ain't catching red breasts, it's time to go home. I mean, just those things are.
They are about as aggressive as it gets.
They're about as aggressive as it gets, and it's a totally different bite. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, that's generally. That's the smaller one. That's the bigger one. That's the color. And these are kind of the two colors. There's a lime green one, a chartreuse one. I throw it sometimes in muddy water just to see if I can get a bite. Once again, muddy water is not great. Generally, if I go and it's muddy, I spend maybe an hour or two there just to see if I can get a bite. And if I don't get a bite, I go home.
Gotcha.
Like I'm just like, it's not going to work. So those are my first go-to baits. That's what I throw to start with when I first get to the river. I have thrown a lot of beetle spins. This is an old school beetle spin. I don't necessarily throw this color, but this is just an example. Beetle spins that, everybody knows what a beetle spin. If you don't, this is what it looks like. I generally throw a black or a white.
Mm-hmm.
The standard beetle spin colors. So if you think about the black with the yellow tails,
right,
the yellow striped tails,
sure,
kind of the alternate of this.
Yep.
This is yellow with black stripes, the black with the yellow stripes, or the white with the red spot. Those are the ones I probably throw the most. Generally get more hits on the white than I do the black. But that's kind of, you'll catch a lot of redbreasts on this. You'll catch largemouth on this. You'll catch Roanoke's on this. So it's a good bait to have when you're going, for sure. And then probably the one that I catch the bigger fish on, the most of my bigger fish, is some sort of either a straight tail or a Ned rig.
Gotcha.
So this is a Ned rig. It's just kind of got I call it a mushroom style head.
Sure.
That does help. It does keep you from hanging up on so many rocks. This is the rock catcher. You'll catch more rocks on this than you will anything else. And what's happening is the flow will bury it.
Right.
You know, because it's on the bottom. The flow will kind of bury it underneath a ledge of a rock, and it'll hang up. You'll have to walk to it and get it off. The bad part is if you hang it up while you're in a spawning group, you're not going to
walk right through it.
You're not going to walk to it. I mean, unless you just don't want to catch another fish.
Right.
You're going to either have to try to figure out how to get that out without walking in that hole, or it's just going to stay there.
Tell your buddy to come get dinner before you walk in there on top of them.
Yeah, and so this is exactly. So this one is an orange. You can see the orange underneath, brown on top. I also throw what they call the Morning Dawn, which is that pink blue bait. Ben might have that. And then I also throw these are all Z-Mans. I throw the one that looks like it's called the Deal, which is just silver. It's very natural in color. Yeah, there's the Morning Dawn color, this is our bait.
That's our bait. That's the Carolina Sunrise, which is a variation
of Morning Dawn. It's just got pink and blue.
So you could take that and maybe cut an inch off of it.
Yeah, you could take it and make it about yay big, or take it and make it that side. That's the one I would use.
Right.
That side of it, cut the head off of it and use that. And the way this bait works is it kind of skips along the bottom. I mean, it's a lot like everybody kind of knows worm fishing, but this thing stands up like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of hop it along, and they'll come. And if you get it close to them, they'll come out and hit it. They're really aggressive when they're feeding. One of the things I love about them is you can watch your bait. You can just watch your bait, and I know because I've done enough work on them and done a lot of electrofishing surveys on them. I know there's a Roanoke underneath that rock. The question is, can I get him to come out and hit the bait that I'm throwing?
Right.
And so I try to get that bait as close to that rock as I can without hanging up, and wait for this black flash, because that's what it looks like. It's a really dark flash that comes out and hits the bait. And so you don't get to see that as much with this. The water has to be really clear to see it with the crankbaits. But this guy here, because you're fishing it a lot slower and you can kind of watch it. It's actually really cool to watch.
So I think this is kind of cool because you got these crankbaits that look and are shaped exactly like a crawfish.
Sure.
And then you got this soft plastic that looks like a stick, and it's the right color.
You know what? I dropped it. I don't know how to tell people any plainer than this right here. If you're not fishing this bait for every animal you go after, you're a fool. That's as clear as I can make it. I take this thing all over the country fishing, and it catches fish. And it is the most know-nothing thing I've ever seen in my life. I do not get it, but it works.
Well, it works. I mean, definitely works. But
the 6.5 pound smallmouth, not to bring it back up.
Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, let's talk more about that. The 6.5 pound smallmouth, this right here.
Mm-hmm.
Trout, speckled trout on the coast, this right here.
Bass, everything.
I mean, sunfish, you name it, this right here. I don't know, but it works.
Where I was going with that is,
that was my public service announcement for the day.
Is that you can take that bait that looks nothing like a crayfish, but the fish actually probably think it's a crayfish. And,
yes.
And that was where I was going with that. Is there's a lot of different hyper realistic stuff out there.
Yep.
But really, it just needs to be, the right color or in the right place.
And I have bought the soft plastic Z-Man that looks just like a crayfish. I can't. They're TRD crawl or something.
The little,
crawls or something like that. That's what it's called. It's got the little crayfish on it, and they do exactly like this, and they stand up with the claws up. Can't catch them on it. Catch them on that all day long.
Interesting.
I do not know why. I can't explain it.
Pro tip.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought, man, that's awesome. That's really going to work. If that works, that's really going to work. No, can't catch them on it.
They like to stick.
I literally can throw the stick right behind it, and they'll hit that, but they will not hit that other bait for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure that bait works for something, but it's not working for me. Mm-hmm. And it may be the way I'm fishing it. I might not be fishing it right, so.
Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about how to do it.
Yeah.
We've talked about where to do it, our Piedmont streams, the Eno.
Yeah, so I will say this a little bit. The Eno, the Flat, the Uwharrie, the Deep, and the Rocky. I would say the Uwharrie, the Deep and the Rocky, they're not as abundant because they're a stock population, even though the Uwharrie's kind of come on in the past decade or so. Mm-hmm. But the Eno and the Flat's full of them. I mean, you can go have a really good day. The upper tar, so now we're talking the very upper tar. We're talking in the Oxford area. That's a really good spot. There's a lot of them there. Generally, I will tell you, if you're looking a bigger Roanoke bass, the upper tar is the place to go. Just historically, the state record is from the upper tar. Our work shows that the upper tar is kind of where it's at, in terms of a bigger average size for some reason.
Gotcha.
Don't know if the habitat's better. And when I say upper tar, as you get into the coastal plain, which this is where all the other rivers are a little different, the upper tar still holds Roanoke bass.
Gotcha.
So if you think about Swift Creek, you think about Shockoe Creek, you think about Fishing Creek and Little Fishing Creek. Fishing Creek's where the state record came from.
Right.
And when you get there, they look totally different than the habitat that I'm fishing in the central Piedmont. They're sandier.
Sure, they have to be.
Yeah, they have to be. They're sandier, but all of a sudden you'll see rocks show up in different places, and those Roanoke bass are around those areas.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so if you go up into Virginia, you got the Nottoway and the Meherrin right there in that coastal plain break, just kind of north of that area that I'm talking about. Very similar habitat. Roanoke bass are there. And I would say the Noose, before it was dammed up, had very similar habitats where Roanoke bass occurred, like the upper Contentnia.
Right.
Roanoke bass did occur there and may still, but it's going to be really small numbers. And you got to go all the way up to Contentnia to find them.
Right.
The upper Little River on the Noose that comes out of Goldsboro, they were in there at one time, but the habitats have changed. Human interactions have made that more difficult to find them there. So they were once a fish that were in really, really rocky, high gradient streams in the Piedmont, all the way down to right at the fall line where it breaks.
Sure.
So
interesting.
My guess is that one time they were probably in Weldon.
Right.
But times have changed. The flow regime has changed and all that. I don't know that because that's a main stem and it's a much bigger river.
Sure.
And they might not have loved that quite as much.
Well, they probably would have been further up the system.
And they are further up in the Roanoke. You get above Carr Lake, and they're in all those rivers that are coming into Carr Lake in that Piedmont stream area.
Well, that tells you they were likely, at some point down there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So we talked about how, the where, what to use. What else do we need?
Well, I think the main thing, the take-home message is like this is a cool fishery that like you don't have to have $4,000 of electronics. You don't have to have a $700 fishing reel. You don't have to have with a fanny pack.
Yep.
And $15 worth of tackle and a relatively inexpensive rod, you can be very successful.
Yeah. And it's a really good day.
And a pair of wading boots.
But it's a really good day. It's fun. It's easily accessible to a lot of people that live in North Carolina in these kind of urban areas. I enjoy it. It's becoming more popular. I see more people, just because the population's increasing, I see more people in the river. You can actually fly fish for these guys. There is a group, Triangle Fly Fishers, I know, have fished for these guys in the past. And they're very successful at catching them. Fly fishing is not my jam, so I don't, so there's other ways to go about catching them other than what I've told you. Mm-hmm. These are kind of the tried and true for me. and it seems to work.
From a fishing point of view, I think the thing that makes it sound interesting to me is it's, we do a lot of fishing where, man, I really want to catch a 5-pound bass today. I really want to make sure we catch a lot of stripers today. But this is kind of low key, low pressure.
Yep.
You got, with the red breast, you got plenty of other options if you're not winning at one. So it's kind of, it's a good thing to do with the kids, assuming they're tall enough.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I mean, like, early on when Jonah was little, I'd take him with me. We would catch fish. He'd get bored. He'd play in the stream, and be like, okay, cool. We're doing something else now.
Right.
Now he goes with me. We fish till we're done fishing. We go home, kind of, and you're going to see, especially if you're in a river state park, it's a popular park. You're going to see people walking by you, that kind of thing. You get on some of these other places, you're not going to see a soul.
Right. You're
not going to see a soul. I mean, you get into Upper Tar, you get into the Flat River where these guys occur above the lakes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing a soul. You're by yourself, which I love.
It is nice. Yeah. I mean, to get away from everything. I mean, that's the whole point of this.
Yeah, exactly. I think we covered it.
Good deal.
Time for questions.
I'm excited. So it's coming.
Yeah.
You're going to go out. We're going to do this.
We're going to do our dead level best to get you on the river.
I'll be like, I understand. And then Corey will probably have this joke about how I broke something or.
Well, we'll likely break. The goal is not to break ourselves.
That's true.
That's the goal.
Especially the older we get.
Yes. I have found that I was much better at it younger. And now when I do it, I am more tired when I get done.
I have noticed that, before I'd slip on a rock and I'd just keep on going. Yeah. Now I slip on a rock and 2 days later, I'm like, I sure wish I hadn't slipped on that rock.
So when we were doing the work, you go back to when we were doing all those electrofishing surveys, we did it with a barge and a generator in the river. Man, we worked our butts off. I mean, it was so much work. It was hot. And I'm like, good Lord, I don't think I could do that now. I'm such a desk jockey now, but you slipped and you fell, you went in the water, you did all those things, and you didn't think twice about it back then. But now I would think, I would have to think about it because I would be very, very sore the next day. When we shot the TV show of Carolina All Out, the guy, Chris Douglas, the host, he texted me the next day. He's like, can you get out of bed? I was like, no, I can't. Thanks. Because it was a lot of work. I mean, sure. when you float it, it's a lot more work. When you walk it, it's not as much work.
Well, you got to get in, got to get out.
Yeah,
you gotta
floating it, you're going longer distances to get to point, and you're having to drag in certain places. And there's places that there are waterfalls that you just have to kind of portage around. You can't go through them. So, you need to know those kinds of things if you're going to float it. There is a book about paddling North Carolina that tells you all about every fall and where it's at.
Interesting.
So that it's a book about yay thick, and
one
of them is light blue. It's for the entire state.
Sure.
One of them was blue in color. The other one, the cover was orange in color. It was 2 different editions.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll tell you every fall that's on the river, so that it'll walk you right through it, so you know what class they are and all that, so that you don't come up on something that you shouldn't and try to go through.
Sure.
If you hear roaring water, maybe slow down and check it out.
A mist.
Yeah. You see a mist in front of you. Maybe slow down and check it out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. So are we ready for listener questions?
I think we are.
Okay. Well, you guys have steady list of questions, steady list of you guys sharing your adventures with us, and we really appreciate that. You can email us at twoballbiologists@ncwildlife.gov, and we'd love to hear from you. Also, like, share, subscribe, all the things.
Yep.
We really appreciate y'all's involvement. We really appreciate getting to know you guys and sharing your adventures and your questions. So this email, you could go to a tackle shop and you could buy a ruler that would have the regs on it. And this fella, Mr. Fourier, he asked me if that was available anymore. I hadn't seen one of them in years.
No, we hadn't printed that in probably 15 years.
Right. And it wasn't even us that printed it.
It was other groups.
And we also had stickers that had the rules on it. One of the problems with those was the sun made them shrink.
Oh, and cook them.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll break apart.
They break apart on you.
Very plasticky.
But I picked this question because I do think it's good to have the rules with you and convenient. And one of the easiest things to do is go to our webpage, ncwildlife.gov. But there's also apps out there. One of them's called Fish Rules that comes to mind that is it stays up to date and that kind of thing. So there's all different ways to know what the rules are. You can even, back before smartphones, I just would print them off and keep them in the boat,
Yep.
But yeah, those rulers have kind of gotten phased out.
Yeah. And I would tell you, talking about rules, make sure you go to our website before you go fishing. If you're not familiar with the fish, or things do change. Mm-hmm. So we just want you to be up to date on that.
And we get a lot of folks that'll call us and ask us, though. They'll email it and that kind of thing. And that's fine too. We do not want you to get a ticket because you didn't know.
Yeah. But if you asked 2 years ago, it might have changed in 2 years.
Right.
Maybe.
So double check.
Sure. Yep.
Next question. Do fish need water?
They do.
There, we did it. We got to incorporate it.
Don't move fish.
And please don't move fish.
Yeah.
We are going to be Mr. Park. We've emailed him recently about an upcoming podcast. He's a big fisherman of the Noose area, and he caught a catfish with a Noose River water dog in its belly. Yes. Really interesting observation, and he emailed us asking, what is this thing? And I was like, it looks like a water dog. I actually emailed it, or got him in touch with our aquatic wildlife diversity folks.
Yeah.
They got a lot of good information off of that about location and stuff. Pretty rare fish, or rare salamander anymore.
Yep. They're hard to find. Used to be pretty common, but
used to be all over the place. Yep. But that
slowly
is
dwindling.
One of the reasons why we shouldn't move fish.
Why you don't move fish?
Because he found it in the belly of a blue cat.
Yep. Yeah.
So
they're
not native.
Blue cats and flatheads have been the death of that animal for sure. Probably water quality too, but that animal in particular is getting hit pretty hard by those animals. And it's a very large salamander. Like it's a chunker.
It's not a hellbender like we see.
It's not a hellbender, but it's
a pretty big.
Is a big one about that size?
I'd say so. Yeah,
about that size. Maybe 15 inches, 12, 15, 18 inches. I don't know. I'm not a amphibian person, but
so we do have folks send us interesting observations, and to be honest, it helps us kind of make sure that our observations and our occurrence data is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And especially with some of these rare organisms, if you guys weren't sending it to us, we might not even pick it up on the survey,
Yeah.
So it's important, if you see something unique, to let us know.
Exactly.
Okay, and we got this last question. Mr. Janes, he was fishing, and he sent us a picture of this fish in Lake Crabtree near Cary.
Good old Lake Crabtree.
And he wasn't sure what it was.
Cool.
It was green, orange fins, white margin.
That would be a green sunfish.
Green sunfish.
All day long.
So, and we'll but yeah, we appreciate these. These are really good questions you guys sent out, and
one of the things I'll say about a green sunfish is they're fairly common.
They are.
But they are highly aggressive.
They are.
And they are nest invaders. Little nerding out there, they will hybridize with other sunfishes in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So they will come in and cause problems to your other sunfish populations. I mean, it's a natural thing, but
sure.
But they do some hybridization from time to time. So sometimes we'll see funky looking sunfish, but you'll be able to see that there's green sunfish mixed in with them. There's telltale signs. Those fin margins
sure.
and around the face. They have different looks around the face that will tell you a green sunfish has been involved somewhere.
Back in my bass fishing stint, and you're pitching, and those green sunfish are very aggressive.
Yep.
Them things get a running speed and grab a lizard as it falls, and you think you have the bass that you wanted.
Yeah.
And then you set the hook and you throw a green sunfish over your shoulder.
That's exactly right. I had some in an aquarium once, and I could keep nothing else in it but green sunfish. You put anything in it, it's going to eat it.
Right.
I mean, they will demolish anything in its path. A very Piedmont fish.
Yes.
Like that's
you don't see
you
them
don't
a whole
see them
lot
in the coast, and you don't see them a ton in the mountains. Is a very Piedmont fish,
But they're everywhere in the Piedmont.
and they're everywhere in the Piedmont for sure.
Well, I've learned a lot today about Roanoke bass. I'm ready to get after them.
Yeah, it's a fun time. I would tell everybody, if you live close to a Roanoke bass population, get out there, go fishing, enjoy the outdoors, and we will see you next time.
Sounds good.